Have you ever thought about developing your own food product but didn't know where to start? I recently had the privilege to interview Christine van der Heede as my very first guest on the Strategy Maker podcast. Christine is a food consultant, a food scientist, and a new product development specialist. She's the owner of Wink Foods Consulting, and she's based in Paarl, Western Cape. She takes us on an amazing journey on how to develop your own food product for the South African market. If you are in need of such a service, please contact Christine. We will have all her details available for you. Enjoy this discussion. Let's talk business. Good morning, Christine. It's so nice to have you here with me. You are my very first interview for the Strategy Maker podcast, and this is an exciting journey I'm embarking on. And it will be thrilling for us to learn a little bit more about you. So welcome on board.
Thank you, Johnny. I think it's a great privilege for me to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
So the Strategy Maker podcast only have one in-house rule, and that is that you are allowed to speak Afringlish, which means we as Afrikaans people can totally lose our English, and then we want to continue in Afrikaans, obviously.
So that is very welcome. Thank you.
If you feel you can better express yourself in Afrikaans, we will add the subtitles for our English viewers. So welcome on board.
Wonderful.
Let's dive in. We want to get to know you better, and I want you to tell our audience a little bit more about who is Christine van der Heede, and then fill us in a little bit on your business, what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. I practically grew up in the food industry with my grandfather having started a fruit processing factory out in Malmesbury in the 1930s. So that was very much part of how I grew up. And I ended up graduating from Stellenbosch with a BSc in food science in 1999. After that, I had about 6 years of work in Cape Town in various factories and businesses, focusing on quality assurance and research and development. After which we decided to take a move out to Paarl, and I started my consulting business in 2005. So I've been going for about 16 years, and in my business, I tend to focus on new product development. And I think I serve quite a variety of different sectors in the food industry. I probably work a bit more on condiments and sauces and fruit and veg products. So you could say that's my area of speciality. Maybe it's also a good idea, Johnny, to explain to the people tuned into this podcast what food science is. Because there's so many terms in food, you know.
Yes.
Food science is really the study of the physical, biological, and chemical attributes of food, and also the concepts underlying the processing of food. Yeah, so just as a bit of background.
Yes, and we will get to this part later on, but there's so many new things happening in the food industry that in part I'm very excited about, and in part I'm very worried about. So we will touch on that later on. But if you can maybe help us through this whole thing or the journey of developing a food product in South Africa. Is it a tedious process? What is involved in all the steps without giving away all your intellectual property? But how does it work in the, including law factors, health factors, and all of that?
Okay, this is going to be a long answer because it is quite a bit of a process. But I like to break it down into 7 steps. And the first step being, the innovative part, where you brainstorm and you create a lot of innovative ideas. That you then take and downscale it to a few more practical choices maybe of products. After that, the selected list of products would be fine-tuned even more to ensure that the new products would fit into the mission and the vision of the business. The third step is to formulate a detailed product brief, and the aim of that is really to describe the product in a lot of details. So this is where you start creating information in terms of what are the unique selling points of the product, how will it be merchandised, will it be in the fridge, in the freezer, or on the supermarket shelf? Are you planning to sell it at farmers markets? Just a few practical points to be able to understand really what it is that needs to be developed. The fourth step is, I think, the step that you were really referring to, and that's where you kind of I kind of do a technical assessment and look at the scientific research behind the product. What's it made up of? What are the possible risks identified with the product, and how can you stick to the product brief while at the same time having a safe product manufactured? And that's also where the legislation comes in. You need to be sure that you're staying within the framework of regulations, and there are many. So that was the fourth step. And the fifth step is the fun step, because that's when we start playing. That's where we have our scales and our testing instruments, and we test concepts. We make recipes, and the focus during that step is really to be able to repeat what you're doing. So we monitor, we document a lot. We make sure that every little bit is detailed in order to understand when we come to larger scale production and what it is exactly that needs to happen. During the small scale testing step, the idea is, on the one hand, to create a rough plan of what you want to do, but also to provide prototypes for the customer or for the client to test. We want them to taste it. We want them to give it out to consumers to test, to have proper feedback in terms of, are we really satisfying a need in the market? So that's the fifth step that I spoke about now. If we are happy with development in a lab or a kitchen style setup, the sixth step would be to move on to factory trials. And that is where this recipe is taken to a larger scale. There's normally a few upscale steps. We don't just run into a huge production run. We scale it up a little bit, maybe start with 500 units or so, and then scale it up until you get to a proper production run. It's during the sixth step that the shelf life testing is also done, and other tests like microbial testing to also again confirm that the product is safe for consumption. And I think that more or less sums it up. The final step would be to look at the graphic design of the product and also the legal compliance of the packaging and the design and the messages that are conveyed on the pack. And also, in today's technological age, people want to also market the product on social media. They've got websites. And you also need to be sure that whatever is communicated on those platforms also fall within the limits of the legislation, South African food legislation.
So for anyone who was interested in embarking on this journey, I think it seems it's not as easy as one would think. I'm going into my kitchen, I'm preparing a batch of fudge, and here we go. I'm going to be a millionaire in a few months.
Yeah, but you know what? That is a perfect first step to take.
Absolutely, because that is where it begins. In which phase of this do you include taste panels or something like that? And will the taste panels be random people, or will it be qualified tasters? How do you do that part?
Yeah, taste testing happens throughout the product. I personally like very much to do tasting. So, you know, and I also want to be sure that a product fits a benchmark if the client has described the benchmark. So we are constantly comparing and we are testing. It is part of the process to also send prototype samples for trained sensory panels. But that comes at a cost, you know, so my clients decide whether they want to do it that way or whether they have a good idea of what their target market wants. And yeah, the client normally decides how formal they want to handle that.
Okay. So it's not as easy. And at this stage, I can maybe just fill in our audience that I have embarked on a journey with you to develop a product, and that is how I started to get to know the industry and what your work is all about, and it's absolutely fascinating to me. So thank you for helping me through the journey. It's absolutely not painful. I'm sure there's going to be some painful parts, but sooner, I think I enjoy the creative part a lot, and I'm sure your creativity plays a big role in journeying with your customers as well.
Yeah, and you know, the brief that I got from you was so amazingly different and exciting and detailed, and it just excites me to work on something like this, you know.
So soon we will tell the audience what this is all about, but in the meantime, there's some work to be done on my product. For us to continue with this discussion, we need to obviously focus on nutrition and health. And I think there's a lot going on in this space worldwide. I mean, specifically working through a global pandemic, the focus has shifted into healthy living even more so than before. So, what is your take, or how important is healthy living for you?
Oh, it's very important. It's something that I place a lot of emphasis on. But I also need to mention that I don't really know enough about nutrition to contribute a specialist opinion. I'm not a trained nutritionist or a dietitian, but for me personally, nutrition is it's a huge thing. You know, we try to include a lot of fresh fruit and veggies into our diet. You know, when I prepare food for my husband and kids. And I also believe that variety is really the key when it comes to nutrition, you know, including lots of different things, trying out new things, not sticking to a lot of routine in terms of what you have on the table every evening, you know, trying out different things. And also I do try my hand at a plant-based and vegan or vegetarian every now and then. And that's also quite an adventure, you know, because there's a lot that can be done, but we sometimes just don't know about all the options there are.
Yes. If there's something that's a big no-no to you, like for instance, people that are very keen on being a vegan, or someone who says no sugars or something like that, what is something is for you personally, and why would you exclude that?
Okay, I think I'm going to answer it in a more general way, and then I'll go to a personal level as well. The biggest no-no for me generally when it comes to nutrition is to say what fits me needs to fit you as well. I think every person knows what their body needs, and I think some people can eat a lot of meat, and I think some people don't do well with legumes and pulses, for instance. I don't think there's one answer for everyone, and I also don't think, you know, if I'm, for instance, if I feel strong about being vegan, it's not to say that it will work for you. So I think the important point I'm trying to make is that there's not a one solution fits all type of approach when it comes to nutrition. Okay, so on a personal level, I'll probably have to say margarine is something that I try not to use.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I tend to prefer more natural butter. Yeah, when I cook, especially.
I must say, I haven't thought about that one because I'm not using it for such a long time already that it's not on my spectre. It's not in my fridge at all. But I think there's still a lot for people to learn about that one. Let's just get back to the whole process that you've previously described. So it's obviously very important for people to be able to read a label and know how much energy, salt, fats, and all of that are in there because people are so diet conscious these days, and it must be obviously correct, scientific correct. Where do people go to get those tests done? Is there specific?
Yeah, they are. There's a few companies in South Africa that do nutritional testing, chemical testing. Yeah, it's available. I'm thinking about companies like Merrier NutriSciences. There's Microchem out here in Cape Town. Yeah, there's a few options.
Okay, so there's a few. Is that an expensive process?
Yeah, it is quite costly. I think that is definitely something that needs to be worked into the budget. You know, when you draw up a research and development budget.
Yes. So if you just a thumbs up, and I know this will obviously differ from product to product, but from the initial first step to the last step that you can launch, what do you think more or less the cost is for somebody if they look at this kind of development?
Are you talking about the cost of development or the cost of testing now?
No, the cost of the process to develop and go onto shelf.
Sure.
I'm sure it depends on what kind of product.
Yeah, it really does depend, because if it's a difficult product to develop, if it's a total new concept, you know, that can cost me 4 or 5 times more than a simple product would cost in terms of consultation fees, you know, physically doing the development. But I think what people want to know is what is the total figure, you know, in terms of what they need to pay for testing, what do they need to pay a consultant like me to develop it for them. And it's really difficult to tell, because it also depends on how involved the client is with the project. You know, there are some tasks that can be handled by the client. You know, if you want to develop a product and you have a library of suppliers at your disposal, you know, it's not difficult for you to get hold of new ingredients if I advise you on what it is that we need. But if I take care of that step for you, that obviously adds a bit to the cost. I've also had projects where the client can actually assist with testing as well. So I can draw up concept recipes, and they can then take it further, test it, make it, taste it, you know, and then I can also help with the evaluation step. So there's a lot of solutions in terms of what is needed, and also in terms of how to fit into a specific budget.
Okay, that is one of the things I wanted to get around to. But now I want to shift gears, because I'm very interested in the business part of businesses. And I know sometimes that's the hardest part for entrepreneurs, is to talk about their businesses, because we only focus on our shortfalls. We know what our strengths and weaknesses are, but for some reason we only focus on our weaknesses, and now this is not done and I can't get to that and I hate to do that. So is there a specific business model that you follow with your business?
I think I tend to focus more on small, less corporate businesses. You know, people who generally can't afford to employ a food scientist. And I think I market my business mostly by word of mouth. You know, it can be difficult in terms of marketing for me, because I am nervous to market too aggressively, because I want to be sure that I can provide the service that I pride myself on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the catch-22 that most single entrepreneurs look at, because if you want to scale, you might fall into a trap of having too much work and not get to the standard you want to deliver. But then there's this lag sometimes that you don't get enough work in, and you kind of get anxious and say, I must market more. But once you start marketing, it's this total spin around and battle. And I think the other thing is for entrepreneurs is to obviously decide, am I a one-man show? And this is what how I want to do it for the rest of my life. Therefore, I will focus on smaller.
Yeah.
Or do I want to scale and move into a next phase with a partner, or sign up people? And that comes with a whole different ball game with salaries that you need to pay.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think for me personally, it's also a bit of a balancing act in terms of my career and also my role as a mom and as a homemaker. You know, it's both of them carry a lot of weight for me, and I want to be sure that I give both the attention that it needs.
Yeah, that makes sense. We all, we women know what the juggling part is about. But I think we need that stimulation of the business world as well, as to develop yourself.
Absolutely.
And know what you contribute, obviously, to society and your family. So tell us about some exciting projects that you have worked on lately, and if you can name drop a bit.
You know what? I actually thought about that before the session, and I realized it's a little bit hard for me to speak about new products because there is such a lot of confidentiality involved in the way I work. But maybe I can mention a range of fruit crisps that I developed for myself, which was quite exciting. I developed a range of fruit crisps that has no additives. And it has an amazing crunch and a rather natural and a very good taste. And that was something rather exciting for me personally. Maybe I can also tell you the kind of products that I've worked on, and there's a whole range. So I've worked on jams, fruit products, veg products, bakery products, dressings, condiments, sauces, spice mixes, juices, iced tea, coffee, baby food, potato crisps, bottled water, cordials, brewing packs, millipap.
Oh, no,
and it's a lot more.
You've covered it all, but is there a specific one that's on the market and doing quite well that you want to mention?
I can't really single anything out. I think what also happens a lot in my career is that exciting products are developed that never see the shelf due to a whole different range of factors.
Yeah.
But there are a few products out there that I have assisted in developing, but I think it would be unfair to claim all the glory for it.
I can imagine that. Tell me about, that's what I want to ask you about this whole process. When you are finished with the process and obviously the customer launches, you can see it moving into the market, starting to grow. Is it hard to detach from the product, or do you still journey for a while with that?
No, I absolutely journey. I absolutely stay involved, and I ask about sales, and it's something that just, it creates a lot of emotion for me to see something on the shelf that I know I had a role to play. It's an amazing feeling, I have to say, to be able to see out there something that kind of you had a bit of input in and assisted, to bring to the shelves.
That's amazing. Um, so, like we've mentioned earlier, entrepreneurs do struggle with some parts of the business. Which part is the part you really um, struggle with? Not because you something you need to know more about, and then obviously there's a part of business that you absolutely don't want to get involved with, and obviously always leave it for the last, very very last part, which in
Yeah.
my case is um, finances um, and filing and administration. To me,
Yeah.
that's quite a schlep. So, what are the things you struggle with?
I also struggle with admin. Oh, it's a challenge. My business coach said to me at a stage that you shouldn't leave it to pile up. You should just do a little bit every day so it doesn't get so overwhelming.
Yeah,
So definitely administration, filing, doing tax and income statements and things like that. Although I actually enjoy accounting, funnily enough, but it's just that step of having to sit down with everything in front of you and actually doing it. But I have a wonderful assistant helping me as well, so she keeps me
oh,
on my
that's nice.
toes. Yeah, so
Well,
admin. I think I also struggle with marketing, because I know so little about it.
what part would you be interested to learn more about to get it under the belt and know how to do it? Is there something specific?
Yeah, I think communicating through social media is something that I would love to learn more about. Yeah,
Yeah.
how do you get messages across that people actually want to hear?
Yes.
What do they find interesting, and how do you convey, what you want to say in a manner that they find shareable or
Yeah,
valuable enough
interesting.
to
And
share.
that they would like to sign up, maybe.
Yeah,
Um, I must say, in my experience, marketing is one of the things that people struggle the most with, because you might make yourself vulnerable to put yourself out there and
uh,
tell the world about who you are, because in the long run there is a logo and a mission and a vision and all of that, but it's connected to you personally. It's actually you
yeah,
market yourself, and that's the vulnerable side. And I think we kind of scare away from that and put it on the back burner.
yeah,
I'm in marketing, but I always say, the shoemaker's kids doesn't wear shoes, because you always comes to your own part of marketing and doing the stuff very last, because you have to
yeah,
do the stuff for your
yeah.
customers. So, but
Okay, there's one more I'm thinking of now in terms of things that I struggle with. And I don't think it's like really something that I don't like to do, but it's a struggle in terms of consulting. People generally come to me because they have a challenge that they want sorted out. And and I think a lot of people expect consultants to do magic, which we can, but the magic is just so much bigger and so much more valuable if it's a team effort,
yes,
because whoever comes to me actually also has a lot to offer, and the process of involving a consultant and coming up with solutions is really a joint effort, in terms of the
yeah,
knowledge of whoever comes to me for answers, and obviously the scientific part and the creative and innovative part that I bring. So yeah, I tend to tell my customers that I like to see it as a team effort, and not something that I sort out on my own. But there are some projects that need that, and I'm willing to do it. But most of the time, it, it more value is unlocked if it's a joint effort.
yeah, I agree with you, because you're not going to be the magic wand. First of all, the customer must buy into your process and what you have to offer, and then journey with you throughout. And that's also not a week-long process. It can be months, it can be even years. So, and sometimes I find that my customers doesn't understand the process. So they
Mm.
are of the perception that you're going to do it in a week's time. And then we get to 6 months and they say, but where's the outcomes? I need the outcomes now. And I think that's most consultants can obviously talk about that. And the other parts which we can also talk about is giving out 100 quotations and maybe convert 10% of that into
that's a challenge.
A lot of time from you.
Yeah, and one puts a lot of effort into quoting because you want to be sure that you're actually giving what this person needs, But I think as in life, it's all about managing expectations. It's all about communicating in terms of what you can offer and where other specialists are maybe also needed.
Yeah, I agree with you. So what is your perception of the impact of the pandemic on the food industry as a whole in South Africa?
Yeah, I think the South African food industry is going through a lot of change right now. I think because of the fact that consumer habits have changed quite a bit under the current conditions that we are living in. People consume differently, they buy differently, they need different things. And I think innovation is key to ensure products and services adapt, to this fast-moving technological age that we live in. Personally, for me in my business, I've seen a lot of projects cancelled. I've had to postpone some products that quotes were approved and we were ready to go. We've started already, and then all of a sudden there's a challenge on the client side in terms of they need to focus on rather paying their staff now, and we understand that it's something that happens. I'm also seeing a lot of people contacting me. People realize that it's time to innovate. It's time to really bring different things to the market if you want to keep it head above water. But a lower percentage of those quotes are actually realized into projects.
Yeah, no, I'm sure people would need some capital, obviously, to take the development process forward, and the economic times are favorable for that at this stage.
Yeah, and I think you have budget, but you need to be very sure that you're applying the budget in the best interest of the business.
Yeah,
so I do understand that people are not even thinking twice anymore. They're thinking more than twice in terms of how to apply their funds.
I also think not only the consumer behavior has changed, but obviously I think our eating habits has changed.
Absolutely.
It's as of people has more time to spend to make their own dinner and not order in or go to a restaurant or something. Well, obviously it was very restrictive in South Africa for us. But I think all along that brings more healthy eating and more creativeness into your own household.
Yeah, and also the whole experience of eating has become more mindful. It's almost become a ritual where more, I don't know, more is taken from the experience of eating. And I also think, we went through a very quiet time in the tense lockdown period where we really took a step back and considered what we had in front of us, and what we need to spend more energy on. And I think nutrition is so important, what you put into your body. And I think a lot of people realize that it doesn't take that long, or maybe that just shifted a bit in terms of, the priorities of how you spend your time. But Absolutely. Definitely, I think a lot of people did more trouble and explored more in terms of cooking. Yeah.
And remember, we've seen all the sourdough breads and the banana breads and...
Yeah.
Everybody
Absolutely.
had a video to show, so that was good times, and I hope we carry that through. So I'm very interested or curious about your future plans. Do you have any future things you want to achieve with Wink Wink? I think we haven't even mentioned your business name up till now.
Oh, Wink Foods.
Please tell us what is in the name and what's the future of this company.
Yeah, let me first tell you how I got to the name. Yeah, that it was a difficult thing for me to choose the business name. Being Afrikaans, I wanted the name to have meaning in Afrikaans as well as in English.
Okay.
And the word I came up with, I actually went through the dictionary and I checked, what are these words that have meaning in both languages. And when I got to the word wink, I realized it doesn't mean the same thing, but I actually like the idea of an eye wink, And
Okay.
in Afrikaans, wink means to call someone closer.
Mm.
And yeah, I think I want to be sure to bring the relationship part into my business. This is not just a clinical scientific service. It's to me it's about relationships and connecting with people.
Oh, that's an interesting name. I love it, especially the Afrikaans part.
Yeah, Wink Foods. I don't know. I like telling people what my company name is all about. I think a name carries a lot of weight, and
Yes. Yes.
and in a sense it creates energy for a business as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of my dreams and my future plans, I think I would like to be involved in a more long-term manner in more food processing facilities. But in people who have a lot of emphasis on innovation and new product development. I think that would be a dream for me. And I also dream of doing a master's degree, hopefully in the near
That's big.
future.
That's big.
Yeah, it's quite big, and it immediately makes me think of what I said earlier about the balance. I think the balance might just shift during that time, but I think I'm willing to do that. And then I also have a love for younger people. I'd love to be involved more with students. And I think doing the master's degree will help me to kind of connect more. I do play a bit of a role at the University of Stellenbosch in mentoring the students in new product development. Yeah, so I think that's something that I like, that I would also like to spend more energy on.
That's great. So there's a lot coming up for you. If I think about future plans for business, I normally think about obviously business strategy. And how important is it for you to sit down and actually draft the strategy or plot it out and say, I want to take this direction now? Or do you just bounce in and start implementing?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit airy-fairy when it comes to strategy. I think I tend to go more towards the side of what you focus on enough will eventually manifest, but then you need to dream in detail. You need to describe the dream, and you need to really put a lot of effort into filling in and coloring in and stating the detail. And I think that helps to have it manifested.
I like that quote of yours, to dream in detail. That's amazing. I'm going to absolutely use that one in future. So to dream in detail is kind of obviously the strategy plan. For me, I tend to go all over the show and want to do this, that, and the other thing. And I think that's where you bring in the focus. So for me, strategy is to absolutely get you to a place where you can focus on what's the next step, because eventually you will get to the final result you are dreaming of. But for me, it's to stay focused. And sometimes I must
Yeah.
literally go and sit down. And people can call it a lot of different things. And in business, obviously, it's a business strategy. But it can be a vision board. It can be a spiritual place where you go to kind of get to that. So, yeah.
But you know what? I think the bottom line in my business is not enough energy is actually spent on creating strategy and revising strategy, and also putting down steps that would aid in getting to your strategy. Yeah.
But I think a business coach can also help you with that focus just to keep you on track, because sometimes you forget what you thought 2 weeks back, but you've discussed it with your business coach and they can help you revisit. But have you done it? Was it actually implemented in your business?
True. Yeah.
How effective was that? Because actually strategy is obviously going back and forward and revise.
And it evolves as well, yeah.
It's not, tomorrow will be a different market you're looking at, because look what happened to us in the past year. And do you consider a digital marketing strategy or digital strategy overall important for your business? You've touched on it a bit earlier.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's very important, and it's something that that I think one needs to focus more on.
Yeah, I think we can't ignore it anymore. The world has definitely shifted there. And if I can, I always advise my customers that obviously you don't need to know exactly how to do digital or social media marketing and how to click through all the processes and everything. But I think what's important is for people to get to know the lingo, to understand what is a URL, how your website functions, how do you optimize your website, how do you drive traffic there, is all your tag managers active on all your sites and all of that. So just to know, because when people deliver that service to you, you can actually check up and say, is that active? Is it actually firing? Is the whole thing integrated? Are the automations working? So it's a part we can't deny anymore. Unfortunately, we have to get around that one as well, which is exciting. I love that. So now I want to move into a bit of more personal space with you. And I want to ask you of a favorite book that you want to mention to us, or something that you've read lately.
I'm all about variety. So it will be difficult to single out one book. What I've read recently is a book called The Choice from which was written by Edith Eger, and it's about times in the concentration camps. It was quite an emotional one to read, but it was very meaningful to me. And I think otherwise, oh, did you read it?
I'm busy with a gift at the moment, the follow-up on that one.
Oh, right.
So, and I started following her on social media. She's 94 and she's amazing.
Oh my goodness. But what a lady I've been through. I mean.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary life. And I think
in terms of other books, I like to read a little bit of everything. I think that's the way that I'm inclined. A little bit of everything, but not too much of one thing.
Yeah, not one specific. And I think it also evolves around your life, the space that you are going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
The season you work through. Okay, so who is your food icons in South Africa or internationally? Do you have a chef?
There's so many. I'm quite interested in the whole molecular gastronomy concept. So I think Kirsten Blumenthal is someone who's known for that. I also like the down-to-earth vibe that Jan Hendrik brings.
Are there specific, can I call them influencers or social media personalities that you follow, or pages that's interesting to you that you want to mention to the audience?
I can't think of anything. No.
I'm
Yeah, I'm
currently
one of
still,
those people. I scroll through and I think about things and I research it, but there's so many things that I read up about. I can't think
I
of anything now
I'm
to
currently
single out.
very keen on Jan Hendrik's social media platforms. I think he's doing all the right things.
Yeah, it's
So,
beautiful what he posts. You know what? We haven't spoken about trends.
oh yes, let's do that part. And I think that's the most important part. What is
Uh,
going on in the food market? Or
yeah,
the
I
food
think the food industry is changing a lot, and there are very exciting trends going on. My favorite personally being how food translates to wellness. People are eating themselves healthy. Um, and they tend to kind of move away from taking pills, but rather eating fresh things uh, in order to maintain health or to improve their wellness. And I think probably the most important trend internationally at the moment is sustainability, and rightly so. We need to take care of the earth. I personally don't like throwing things away, so I would question if something is overpackaged.
Okay.
I I like to recycle. I think I'm a bit of a recycling fanatic, actually. And what doesn't go to recycling, goes to the chickens in my backyard. Or if it's something like veggie peels, anything organic, can go there. And I've got a compost heap in the backyard as well, and I've got an earthworm farm. So yeah,
Wow.
I think one wants to be more conscious about how you consume. So yeah, sustainability is a huge trend. I think there's an ongoing trend towards cleaner label, using less chemical additives in products. I do think there's a place for it. Additives also contribute to food security. So in terms of processing and adding additives, I think there's a place for it. But there is definitely a worldwide trend moving more towards cleaner label products.
Mm-hmm.
And then plant-based vegan is quite a big thing. People are playing around with it, or they're actually very seriously focusing on eating plant-based. Another trend that I quite like is food with a story. So you're not just selling something. There's a whole story behind it, and it kind of also forms part of the ritual of eating, mindfully understanding where it's coming from and enjoying it in that regard. So I think there's a bit of a entertainment angle to food and to eating as well. Another trend is immune boosting foods, food that promotes gut health. And I think that's important, given what we are going through at the moment with COVID. It's really important to look at what you eat and to eat items that contribute to your wellness and the health of your gut microbiome, which is really, really very important. It affects a lot of things. And the last trend that I'd like to talk about is really quite obvious. It's the fact that people are combining trends. It's not just one thing that you try and sell. It's the food with a story that has a bit of a benefit in terms of something that was added. So I think there's a lot of play between all the different trends going on.
That's exciting times for me. One of the focus for me on developing my product is obviously preservatives to keep it as natural as possible for as long as possible on shelf. And it's quite tricky because you want shelf life, but on
Yeah.
the other hand, you don't want all the unnatural. Is that the
Additives.
word?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
additives.
all the chemical additives. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part I really don't want to do. And I'm fully on board with you with the whole, sustainability process, even in your production, how much water you use,
Yeah.
where does the peels go, what do you do with the rest? So there must be a whole
Absolutely.
flow of in your process that you develop to be more
Yeah.
sustainable.
Yeah, and it's a
Um,
consciousness, you know,
yes.
it's something at the back of your mind that you need to go to and think about. And I think that's how we contribute eventually to the earth being a better place, just by thinking about it and thinking twice
Mm.
maybe about which packaging to use or what to do with your waste. Yeah.
And obviously triggering your customer to think about that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you come with a message and you tell them, but by using this product, you are actually contributing to all these positives. That's an amazing marketing angle to
Mm.
approach with.
Another interesting buzzword that is heard a lot at the moment is adaptogens. Have you heard the word?
I don't know it at all.
Yeah, so adaptogens are substances, I think mostly botanical substances, that is used to promote health and wellness. So it would be an extract that supports sleep or relaxation, or it's an essential oil that assists with digestion, or there's quite a few common challenges that people experience,
Mm-hmm.
and I think adaptogens are applied in the food industry to help with that. But I think it's a difficult one because a lot of companies market it in a way that is a little bit misleading, or that doesn't have supported science behind it. But yeah, I think that's an interesting kind of direction, that the
Yeah.
food industry is taking.
Well, that needs to get some investigation from my side then, because it
Yeah.
triggers a few things that I want to know more about. So I will speak to you about that
Absolutely.
afterwards for sure.
Yeah. And it also falls into the trend of eating yourself healthy, having
Yes.
functional ingredients that
Mm.
um that helps you, reduce stress, or whatever the case might be. I was
Mm.
thinking to ask you a question as well, if you're open for it.
Okay. Yes.
I was thinking, I think it will be interesting for me to know what you think the food processing industry needs more of.
Um, my answer will be based on my experience the last year.
Mm.
I always try to eat healthy and live healthy. I also raised three boys, and while they were on that teenage spree where they were eating everything,
All you.
I always had bowls of fresh fruit and even fresh
Yeah,
vegetables that they literally eat or ate broccoli, or
that's very
they
impressive.
they do raw potatoes up till today for some reason.
No ways. That's interesting.
So so but the last year it kind of shifted even more prominently for me to, if I put something in my mouth, I want to know where it comes from. And like you said, who's the person behind it? For me to eat
Yeah,
your crisps, I will know you have gone through your process and this is what I'm eating. It comes from Christine. So I think the I would like to see less processing, less preservatives, more whole food, more healthy. Now
yeah,
then we get into the whole part of obviously where does it come from? How does the farmer um, treat the produce, meat
yeah. The
wise,
ethical
beef
side of it
wise,
maybe as well. Yeah,
that whole thing, which
yeah,
is obviously a very gray area because you always have the money side to it, that it must be financially also sustainable. But
yeah.
I think in short, I would like to see something wholesome.
Mm.
If I consume it, I must feel better. I must think better. I must, even if I look at something, it must bring something to mind that I'm in a good space now. Where will people be able to find you online?
I've got a website. It's www.wink-wink.co.za. That page was initially started for my fruit crisps range. So there's a button at the top of the page called consultation, which one can just click on for more detail on my consultancy.
Okay, but we will also obviously share all your details in the links below the video on YouTube.
Excellent, thanks.
I will be able to follow you from there. Do you also have a Facebook page?
Yes, I'm on Facebook as well at Wink Foods.
Okay, so thank you so much. I want to fire away with our last rapid answer part of this, and this is a bit more personal. So I'm going to give you one word, and then I'm going to ask you to give me one word to describe it with, or even if you want to do it in a few words, you can do that.
Okay.
So the first word I want to mention to you is success.
Yeah, I think success is earned. And success is hard work.
Success is earned. That's a nice one. Regret.
I think the regret is probably needed, but it needs to be felt and let go of.
Okay, so it must be handled.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of brushing under the carpet, you know. I'm rather a fan of addressing and living and feeling, but then kind of moving on.
Yeah, that's also not to get stuck, hey? Core value.
Core value.
Core value.
Core value, integrity.
And that can be for yourself or your business. Integrity, that's a good one. That's a very good one. Money.
Money is a means, but not an end.
Okay. And then lastly, family.
Okay, I'm going to have to throw in the first Afrikaans word here. For me, family is what I would describe in Afrikaans as geborgenheid. I suppose you could say a groundedness on the one hand, but also feeling safe. Yes. I think that's what family means to me, and family is very important to me.
And how big is your family?
In my house, I have 3 boys, a husband and 3 boys, and I think we have quite a large extended family. Me being part of 4 siblings, and yeah, it can get loud.
That's amazing. That is just such a privilege in these days to have family around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Christine, I would like to thank you for being on my first podcast, and I want to wish you all the best for the future. We're going to share all your details on our platforms as well, and people can contact you from there. But we obviously would like to check in with you in a few months' time and see where this is taking both you and me in our development process. So thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful day in the beautiful Paarl, and hope to see you soon in the Ferris Cape.
Thank you, Johnny. And I also want to say from my side, thank you for making me think of business concepts, that my business needs. And thanks for your input into my business in terms of strategy and direction. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity, to have been able to speak my mind a bit.
You're more than welcome. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.